Hey everyone, I hope you're well, playing on making the games that you all love. You're joining me, your host, Max Pears, but not just me. We've got the man with the plan, Daniel Howard, joining me today as we go through your questions from the community that they've asked us about game development, level design, and much more. So we try to do this once a month, try to help as many people as we can. So if you do want to ask questions later for us to answer to, we'll tell you where later on in the episode. Without any further, Dan, how are you doing, mate?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
All good, champ. All good. Glad that we can get to do this once more and be able to talk again, mate.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
That's it, mate. So we've got a few questions coming in from our community. Now, you can ask us questions through that of Twitter or email your questions into us, but we tend to answer and focus more on the ones from our actual community. So if you want to join that, be part of our incredible community, head over to patreon.com/leveldesignlobby.com. So why don't you hit us off, Dan, with question number one?
Okay, lovely stuff. Question number one comes from Kim. It's a question about applying for jobs, specifically about how scarce certain jobs can be in the industry. And she's talking about how she wants to apply for various studios that might not all be in the same vein or genre. So she's just wanted to get your take on how to navigate that from a portfolio perspective.
Yeah, so I understand that people will ask, should I tailor my portfolio towards who I'm applying for? And yes, if you can, go for it. But that's going to be hard because if you, like Kim is saying, she wants to apply to multiple places. It doesn't mean you're always going to get that chance. So to me, as long as you have a good, strong portfolio, honestly, I wouldn't worry too much. We've got a beautiful sound effect with us. It's all good, man. I'll take that question from the top, mate.
All right, you go ahead.
Yeah. So this is a good question because a lot of people do advise tailoring your portfolio to who you want to work for. However, this does involve a lot of work and won't always get the time. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. As long as you have strong portfolio as well as good examples of your work, honestly, you're going to be fine. Just make sure that, again, your portfolio quality overall is up to standard, and I think you'd honestly be fine. Now, again, I knew people who did for final pieces of their portfolio were based in like the Last of Us realm, but then went over to Creative Assembly and other incredible studios as well. And again, that wasn't because their work was based in those universes. It was just strong work. So that's all you need to focus on, is delivering strong portfolio pieces, and trust me, you'll be fine as you go about doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a simple one, we know, but I think sometimes people overthink these things, and everyone understands that you're not going to be able to do all of this work all the time. You have a life, you should be able to go and enjoy that, and it's a lot of work to make great pieces of levels, especially in your own personal time. So again, people, don't stress too much. Just, again, focus on quality work, not always specifics.
Yeah, it's the technique that is being assessed a lot of the time on a portfolio review more than the tonality of a piece or the genre that it fits into.
Exactly, yeah, mate. Exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Lovely stuff. Next question we've got coming in from Mark. Mark asks, what considerations do different camera angles or perspectives bring to level design?
That's a really good question. There's a lot there to it, and you'll find when you have these different angles or different perspectives, it's about how much information it reveals. How much information it reveals. Third person will show a lot more versus being in first person. If the camera is over the shoulder versus the character being in the middle, then it's better to have all your information more on the right hand side versus the left, because the fact that the player will take up that third of the space. There is a lot to think about with this. Now, It's hard to say without giving details or example, but just one of them is, as I talked about earlier with the amount of information, when you're making a first person, so when I went from Division to Cyberpunk, you could have a lot more open, vast rooms because the player could see more as they came in. But when you're doing that in Cyberpunk or first person camera, that forces the player to look left and then look right. And this can be very frustrating if you're hiding something out of their view. So we tend to have more kind of like smaller rooms, but also slowly reveal the information at time. Don't just have it plonked in the middle. You're doing like one turn before another turn before another turn, slowly revealing that. And another thing which I'm sure Dan will add on is composition as well. When we're trying to highlight those landmarks or that vital information, I talked about being over the shoulder or player in the center. That really can either, how do I say, force you to put that information on those certain angles, on those certain lines. Because as I said, there's a part of your, like when you think of the Batman games, when Batman's walking, he takes up almost 2/3 of that camera's screen space because they want him to be the imposing figure, right? But that means as an LD, I can only show information over his right-hand shoulder. If I put anything on the left as the player comes into a room, they're probably not going to see it because Batman's there in front of it. So it's that kind of thing that you have to think about. And again, it also shows different kind of it's also different type of movement with different types of actions. God of War, when we saw it with 1917 as well, this one-shot tracking cameras. Am I right using tracking camera, or is it just one shot I'd use for this one, Dan?
Either or, really, because obviously it is following. So yeah, tracking is fine.
Just a fucking genius.
He knows.
But that again, like when you hear about Sony Santa Monica, they have to load, or the way they do cutscenes to put the player back on path, because again they can't move the camera, they have to move the camera and the player. It involves more movement. So the example is when we see Atreus kill his first human, the player is trying to run to them and then they tackle and they roll around. Now they don't have any idea where the player might be when they're going, after they finish their combat to get to Atreus. So the roll around, because the camera is moving, they then reset the player to where they want them to see to get that composition earlier. So there's a lot that can change with it. I honestly think so much to a point where we haven't even figured out as an industry, and this was with not even talking about VR yet. I don't think we've figured it out all, to be honest. Like, there are so many different types of shots, which I know Dan's going to go into more detail on. Yeah, it's harder, again, because we give player control of the camera. But there's a great video I think we had in our community talking about Shadow of Colossus and how it always tries to track the player to being in the lower third of the camera position to, again, make the player feel small, and it's no longer just being a player in the center. So there's so much to think about, and it's important. That's why they always talk about the 3 C's, character, camera, controls. So once you nail that down, only then can we start making good gameplay, good design decisions, because they're so important, and that trickles down further on. So I don't know if you want to go into further details, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everything you said there is sort of hitting the nail on the head with regards to the question at large. I think camera position and perspective is a huge part of design. It's a huge part of adding to narrative or adding to feeling. Getting in really tight, making things feel claustrophobic could be great, in a horror setting or something like that. It's something that cinema has, kind of mastered over the 100+ years that cinema has been a thing, and obviously games have taken all of the knowledge that camera positioning from cinema, and they're now trying to find a way to evolve that into an interactive medium, whilst also letting go of the controls a bit. Like you said, the player has control of the camera a lot of the time, so it's not as cut and dry as in film. A cinematographer will meticulously piece together a shot, and you'll see exactly what they want to see. In games, you have to do that, but also be aware that the player might enter the room slightly differently to how you're currently viewing it, and it's given that control over, but still getting that essence fully across. there's a fantastic article and video component from Studio Binder about framing and about cinematography and camera angles that I would very much recommend. Obviously, it's more of a film piece than a game piece, but I mean, as you know, me and you talk cinematography quite a lot, and I think knowing cinematography is very valuable in level design.
For sure, completely agree. We'll put the video in the description down below because even I want to check that out. And me and Dan have been on a Roger Deakins deep dive
The
for
master.
the last the hero.
A
Oh,
national
hail
treasure.
Deakins! Did you know he's got a podcast as well? I
Is he
didn't know
actually?
that.
Incredible.
Yeah, him and his wife. Oh, it's called
subscribing.
Yeah, let me write this down. I'm going to put this because we'll put this in the details as well, everyone, because I think it's important for you to listen to Roger Deakins. He also should be a national. He's not knighted, is he? He's not even got an OBE.
I don't think so. That is a crime.
That is, when you think about it. You know, we're two British lads proud of another one going. Yeah, it's called Team Deakins, Dan. So check that one out for you. So as anyone else there, again, he is for those who don't know, because we've just said his name like 3 times, but not what he's done. He's a cinematographer that has worked on 1917, Blade Runner 2049, what was it, True Grit.
Most of the Coen brothers films.
Which was the first one he worked on called again?
With the Coens?
Yeah, it was that weird one. Was it the guy from Ghostbusters, the one with the circle glasses? It wasn't. I can't remember the name, mate. He was like one of the very.
Did you do Barton Fink?
That's the one. That is the one. Yes. So, yeah, and for those also, another great one to look at is what's his name? Bong Joon-ho.
Oh yeah, Bong Joon-ho.
Yeah, thank you. If you haven't seen Parasite, I just finished that myself. What a film. You know, he's got some other great ones. Snowpiercer. Don't watch the TV show. Watch the film instead. Honestly, it's a lot better. But again, we mentioned that, and we're going obviously on a tangent. But cinematography is such an important thing, and we're seeing more of that come across, as we mentioned with God of War, right? That there was a really tough decision, I imagine, and it's, you know, they've said that, referenced it in all their talks, podcasts, all of that. But there is a point in why they chose that, because it makes it feel more personal. It makes it feel more intimate. That journey is, we're just going with those two. There isn't a switch, there isn't a cut. So whatever you see is only what Kratos sees too. Maybe slightly different perspective, obviously, for framing on other things, but again, it's only what they're seeing. So you're finding the mysteries out at the same time. I was gonna say, Dan, is there anything that you think from a cinematography point of view, like a certain angle, certain like shot style, you think that you'd want to see more in games, or like we don't experiment with like
interesting
shots, you know, now?
I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because I think, like I say, it's got to be something where a designer is happy giving over that control to the player.
Yeah.
I think from a cutscene perspective, camera angles in cutscenes are getting more and more cinematic as we go on, and that kind of reached a sort of a new height in the sort of late 2000s, early 2010s, didn't it? And it's, you know, sort of stayed consistent since then. So from a cutscene perspective, I think that's fine. It's how that translates into gameplay and how you can kind of not imitate, but, you know, for lack of a better word, imitate certain shots from films, whilst also not having any control over the camera. No, that's a tough one.
Because, like, I'm wondering, because again, sorry everyone, we've gone off on tangents, but I think it's a fun tangent for us. I loved in Spirited Away. What I noticed with that one is, like, for most of the film, I've forgotten the main character's name, but you're looking at her. What is it? If you're looking down on them, it means they're small. If you're looking up, it makes them feel larger, right?
Yeah.
So you follow her, constantly looking down at her till near the end, where she builds her confidence up, and you're slowly seeing that camera subtly like go up like that. And I wonder if you could do something like that, right? Like, because all games are about empowerment, you learn a new ability, constantly getting better, right? I wonder, and again, you've got to have it so the player can still move and control it, as you can see by my hand puppet at this minute. But like, I wonder if you only have it so much that the player can't look up, like they're supposed, like right from underneath the character, but you limit it. You put like a, you know, restrictor, so it dampens a little bit, So that way they can't do fully this, but just
Mm.
slowly, you know. And then again, but if we did that, to go back to the question, then that means if I can only look up a little bit, then it means that the landmarks in those shots, I've got to get on eye level. I can't get looking above us, which could be frustrating, but could, as I say, if you get and nail that emotional impact to eventually where we're now looking up at the character because they're feeling stronger and bigger, it could work with that. So I think it impacts a lot as those level designs, but I think I want to encourage, as me and Dan talk about this, is encourage people to think a little bit different about camera angles. Don't just be third person, first person, isometric. They are the foundations, but what can you do better? Like, what can we do with isometric that hasn't been done before that works into telling the story? As we talked about before, like, not every game is about a story, but you want to tie it in with either the key thing of the design or the narrative. Make sure it's not just, oh, figured it out once and done. No, let's really give it some thought. So yeah, we went on a tangent. We went on a tangent, but I loved it.
That was a good question.
Awesome. It was.
It's a whole subject in itself.
Yes.
Okay. Next up, we've got a question from David. A lighter question. What's the most boring thing to do in your job?
Oh man, how to say this without getting in trouble?
I know.
Next one. I think what you'll tend to find is there isn't like a certain aspect, but when you are like the junior or the intern, when you arrive, the more boring jobs will end up on your plate. So for example, a friend of mine, when they just got a new intermediate into the team, and I can't remember what game it was. Basically, they just made them handle the entire road system of placing the roads around the city. It wasn't level design, you know what I mean? Like, it was just placing roads. For another one, because what you'll find with level design is, especially because I don't want to say we finish the earliest, because I don't think we do, because we're the point where everything comes in, but we do finish earlier than some teams. So maybe we might have to come in and help out other teams. So it's not necessarily level design stuff that's the most boring, but it could be that you're helping a different team which isn't level design orientated, like adding physics to destructible objects, which is painfully boring in itself. However, I will say, because I had to do some of that on Cyberpunk, one of the coolest things was after I tested it, I went out and shot a shotgun into someone and they fell back into this newsstand and all like the books fell down behind them. I was like, okay, like it's boring doing it, but I see the excitement it brings. So there isn't a full example. You just remember when you are, there's always the great saying that see if this beat button works in time, that the rolls downhill, you know what I mean? So you don't know what it's going to be, but just try to remember you're trying to help other people, which is always a good thing, and you're helping the game in some way, hopefully. So there isn't one answer, but someone's going to come knocking on your door asking for help at some point. So yeah. I think I answered that without getting fired, Dan.
Yeah, that was good. It was a very diplomatic answer. Well done. You have a future in politics if this doesn't work out.
That's it. So no, awesome. That is all the questions that we have time for today. We know there are still incredible questions still waiting for us to come, but don't worry, we do this once a month. We try and do between, about 3 to 4, maybe 5 sometime questions each episode. So if we didn't answer it this time, trust me, it's on our list. We're always constantly getting through them. If you do want to ask a question and you are a member of our Discord, then again, please just put them into the podcast questions. It's just the channel down there. Myself, Dan, and the other moderators do check it out, and we will use that constantly for these episodes. So again, don't feel that we're not going to come back to it by not answering today. We want to answer as much as possible as we can. So again, thank you all very much. If they do want to reach out to you, Dan, for more incredible, narrative and cinematography tips, where can they do so?
Lovely stuff. Twitter, Instagram, Fiverr, Doward24. Same handle everywhere. Nice and easy.
Awesome. I think we should have our new frames now, actually, Dan, shouldn't we?
We do.
Yeah, so it'll be on there for us both. If you want to reach out to me on Twitter, you can do so at MaxPairs. If you do want to email into us on this show, please head over to leveldesignlobby@gmail.com. Love to hear back from all of you. And if you do want to support the show to make sure that, again, this keeps getting better, please do support us at patreon.com/level design lobby. If you are listening to us on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe, like the video, or if you're doing that through any podcasting app, hey, again, like, subscribe. I know there's different options for different ones, or even rate us. All the ratings help, again, boost us up so more incredible people can find this out and share it amongst your friends and even your family. Nana, we love you. All right, then, everyone, take care, take it easy, and we'll catch you all next time.